Hello and welcome to this new edition of BCR Webcasting. Today we're going to be talking about our upcoming event, which is going to take place in MENA, our supply chain finance event. That is on the 7th to the 8th of November in Dubai. It's the second time we're holding this event, second year. Last year it was very popular and we've had a lot of interest in the run-up to the event this year. So we're expecting a very good turnout and a very good conference. In respect of that, I'm delighted today to be joined by Doaa Hafez, who's General Manager, Head of Technical Functions and alternate Head of International Factoring at Egypt Factors, and is on the Executive Committee of FCI as well. Doaa, welcome.
Thank you.
You're going to be moderating an interesting panel at MENA next month. And the subject of that panel is, well, the focus is on Egypt and supporting a growing SCF market there. Delighted to have you here, Doaa, and just want to ask you a bit about that session and to give us some information about what's happening in Egypt.
Yeah,
And I'm aware that there was a new law in 2020 in Egypt to help the development of SCF and factoring. And also, as a result of that law, I think you now have an association.
yeah,
Um, and also, from looking at the article in the World Factoring Yearbook, I see that volume has jumped quite considerably in 2021, and that volume has been maintained in 2022. So it does look as if there's quite a lot happening in Egypt. Just give me your thoughts about that and how the market is developing and expanding.
yeah. Thank you so much, Michael, for giving me this fantastic opportunity to highlight on the growth of the factoring industry in Egypt and the success story Egypt is having currently, and how can we have a sort of simulation for the same process and the same best of practice for other emerging markets as well to grow. And this is the focus we're trying to do. As you just mentioned, in Egypt, the first factoring law has been approved. And the first factoring law also includes the law for leasing and factoring. And this gives the market the great opportunity for leasing in financial institutions to start at factoring as a product on their portfolio, as well as for the factoring companies or the factoring financial institutions to start adding leasing into as a new product into their portfolio, for them to be able to provide one trade, one trade shop station for the clients to do factoring and as a short-term way of fund, and leasing as a medium-term source of fund, so they can provide both to the client, short-term and medium-term. And this will, of course, one of the main reason of having this type of growth in the volumes in the industry, because the Egyptian Factoring Federation, right now, we have more than 22 members on board. They are all factoring, leasing companies and banks. And they are all providing a sort of complete solution for the client for short and medium, as well as the normal banking businesses like the PO finance and like the supply chain finance on its traditional way. So the market is growing very well, and there is also a lot of initiatives coming from the government to support the fintech, because fintech is a tool which is really required for the market to be able to grow in the area of the supply chain globally and locally. So we have a lot of initiatives to grow the supply chain finance as a global model and as a local model, by being able to get the buyer confirmation, and basically on the confirmation of an anchor buyer, we can get this, or the SME can get the source of fund from the financial institution via factoring.
How would you say
So
the market is developing in the MENA region compared to the other markets in the MENA region? We know that the MENA region is there's quite a lot happening there in general, but would you say Egypt is particularly um, faster growing, faster developing in the
yeah,
MENA region compared
yeah,
to
you
other
know,
markets
Michael,
in MENA?
yeah, from the factoring point of view, we are growing. Maybe we have now the low and we have a decent volume in the factoring industry. In the MENA region, as well as the new factoring law has been approved as well, and we are expecting that the volume of the factoring business will be increasing. However, for the time being, maybe the normal model of the supply chain finance is more dominating. However, we're expecting that the MENA region, during the coming period of time, they will start to provide or to focus more on factoring as a good tool of fund for SMEs. Because under factoring, you can have the credit cover coming from the import factor. They can enhance more the export volumes and they can extend the payment terms. So I believe that the success story of Egypt will be in a very short period of time replicated by most of the banks who are big players in Egypt as well. We have a lot, most of the banks in United Arab Emirates, they have branches here in Egypt, and in Egypt they start to provide factoring. So I believe it's a matter of very smooth and short process. They will replicate the model here in Egypt to be done in UAE as well. So I am expecting that the coming period of time, there is more focus will be into the other non-traditional way of supply chain, particularly factoring.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about the what's happening in terms of technology in the market? Because we know that as markets develop and become more competitive, um, the use of technology becomes increasingly important to gain
Yes.
competitive advantage, to increase efficiency, maybe to lower costs and make the products more attractive.
Yeah.
What's happening in Egypt? How developed are you in terms of your
Yeah.
use of
You,
technology?
Yeah, you know, Michael, we have two different initiatives. I believe both will be combined very soon. But we have an initiative coming from the anchor buyer side, which we are naming the resilience of supply chain more, which means that some of the big names, big buyers, are quite keen to provide a resilient supply chain, which means that they can extend the supply chain solution not only to their supplier, but the suppliers of their supplier. So this is a very common model right now. So you have a very tier A buyer, and this buyer is having his own platform. And for them to make sure that there is a resilience of supply chain, they are trying to extend the solution to be in favor of the supplier, direct supplier, and their suppliers as well. And this is becoming very common now. We're naming this as deep tier supply chain. We are also have a model of embedded supply chain, and this could be found in very big names like Google or Amazon. So they will be having the solution inside their platform for the individuals and the suppliers to be able to benefit from such type of initiatives. So this is a new trend. And I must say that this is a very good initiative from the big anchor buyer side for the supplier and the supplier of the supplier to start get the benefit of the supply chain. We also have from the other side initiatives coming from the government, coming from supranational banks and very big associations, as well as coming from the national banks itself. So we have one of the very big initiatives from IFC. They are having now the project to connect all of the trading parties on one platform. So the supplier, the buyer, and the funders to be connected to one platform. And this platform is connected as well to a lot of other platform, governmental platform, to be able to, to impose more or to implement more the concept of digitalization and financial inclusion.
Hmm. And on that point of digitalization, I'm sure you're aware of the Electronic Trade Documents Bill
Yeah.
that has gone through Parliament in the UK and, in fact, has become law today,
Yeah, that's very
20th
good.
of September. Where do you think, where does, can you tell me a little bit more about where Egypt stands
Yeah,
on this?
we started.
Do you see something similar
Yeah, yeah,
happening
yeah.
in
We
Egypt?
already started by having the law of the electronic invoice. So currently we must have an electronic invoice in place, and this electronic invoice is recorded in the tax system. So whatever the type of trading between supplier and buyer, it has to be done via an electronic invoice. And this electronic invoice is recorded, and you can log on into the system of the taxes, and you can see this electronic invoice. And basically, by having the verification or validation of this electronic invoice, we as a financial institutions or bank, we can be more comfort to start giving fund on this invoice. The
Mm.
next step is to start to link the electronic invoice and the tax system with other systems as well, to have a complete infrastructure from the day of having the invoice issuance, recording the invoice in the systems, and then seeing also or link it with a receivable register to be able to see if this invoice already funded by other financial institution or bank or not. And eventually to start doing the fund, and by the end to see the full cycle completed by having the collection.
Yes, a centralized recording registry,
Yes,
which we know
yes,
has been working well in other markets as well.
yes, yeah,
So, Doa, it sounds like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in Egypt for
yeah.
supply chain finance and factoring. So we look forward to hearing more detail from you and your fellow panelists in November, not next month, as I said earlier. It's actually month
Yeah.
after next, 7th and 8th of November in Dubai. And if you're interested in coming, people are watching now. If they're interested in coming to that event, please look at our website at www.bcrpub.com/events. Thank you very much for your time today and look forward to seeing you in Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to seeing you and looking forward for a great panel.